Hello and welcome to the interview here on France 24. France is at war in Mali and it says that it will stay there for as long as it takes. But just a few days into the operation, lots of questions are being asked about the goal. Is it simply to contain the jihadist fighters in the north? Is it to destroy them? Or is it to pave the way for an African political solution? Well, to share his thoughts on those questions, I'm joined today by Gregory Mann, who is a historian of Francophone West Africa and a professor at Columbia University in New York City. Hello and welcome to you. Thanks for being on the show. Gregory Mann, how long do you think this operation is likely to take?
Well, it's too soon to tell, but I think it might take a very long time. Of course, it depends partly on what the objectives are. As you say, are the objectives to control the north, to reassert the control of the central state over that vast Saharan territory, or is the objective simply to protect the fragile interim government and its very weak army in the south?
Do you think France actually has any answers that it's just keeping close to its chest? Because it's not really clear what as long as it takes really means when the French say that.
And they've clearly been surprised at how tough the enemy has proven to be on the ground. I'm sure there's some discussion within the French political circles about how ambitious they want this to be, this particular initiative. They hope to see West Africans take the lead, but it's well known that the West African armies don't have the capacities that the French military has, particularly the aerial capacity, logistics, intelligence. All these things are going to need to come from better funded militaries, whether France, in this case, potentially the United States, which has said that it will help United Kingdom and Germany as well.
On the African deployment, do you think France has taken then a very big gamble by hoping that these regional countries that are sending troops, such as Senegal or Nigeria, that they will actually be combat ready within a few weeks?
Well, it's certainly ambitious, and it's even optimistic. I think the military experts expect that it will take quite a long time for those units to train together, to be able to work together, to be able to accommodate to this very difficult terrain of the Sahara. But it might be that they're simply holding positions that the French have been able to establish that they'll be more effective. This is going to be a process of engagement that will be made up as it goes along. The intervention happened earlier than it was expected to happen, although there have been long months to prepare for it. Romano Prodi, the UN delegate to the Sahel emergency, had said that he thought it might not happen until September of this year. So obviously we're having this conversation months earlier than we anticipated having this conversation. And the military planning is not entirely in place.
What's your sense about the Malian army and where it stands at the moment in its military capability?
Well, my sense is that the Malian army is quite weak. It's internally divided. You might recall that in late April, early May, soldiers were in fact firing on each other in Bamako, and some of the most capable units were actually destroyed in that engagement. So the fact is the Malian army is not able to take on these very well-armed, very well-trained, very mobile jihadists who they face in the north.
You mentioned the other countries that are helping France, and of course the solidarity and actual logistical help has been very quick in coming. What do you think is really motivating the international community exactly in helping France?
Well, I think among the African states, clearly the President Issoufou of Niger has said that he sees this as a priority, and he was speaking very loudly in favor of a more active interventionist policy months ago. President Macky Sall of Senegal has taken much the same position. For the non-African states, for example, the United Kingdom, the United States, they're happy to see France take the lead. They're happy to see France foot most of the bill, but clearly they want to make at least moderate efforts to help support the French effort with aerial and logistic and intelligence aid.
Do you think there's that much awareness, though, in policy circles in the US about the dangers of Mali completely falling apart? I mean, is that really part of the debate, you know, when some analysts draw a parallel between Afghanistan as it was in 2000 and Mali as it could still become?
Well, I think the United States analysts, the government folks in state and the Department of Defense, I think they're working very quickly to get up to speed. Obviously, there are people who have a great deal of expertise in the region. Many others have much less. But I think the United States government conversation, at least from what I hear from the outside, is increasingly attentive to the Sahelian crisis and its potential to create a kind of safe haven for terrorists that might in some way loosely be similar to what was produced, as you say, in Afghanistan in the 1990s during a long period of disengagement.
What about these groups in the north then? You've spoken about the dangers they pose because of the way that they're financed. Can you just sort of elaborate on that?
Well, it's actually quite interesting. The three groups that are most active in the north, the Islamist groups, let's say, Mujao, ACME, or Al-Qaeda in Islamic Maghreb, and Ansar Din, which is a Tuareg-led movement, they've made a great deal of money over the last years by taxing cocaine smuggling, which is extremely profitable, passing through Malian territory up into Europe. They made a great deal of money in taking hostages, European hostages, and ransoming those hostages to European governments for astronomical sums of money. So they're very well funded. And in fact, U.S. General Carter Ham, who's the general who leads AFRICOM, the Africa Command of the U.S. military, has said openly that Al-Qaeda in Islamic Maghreb is the best funded of the different Al-Qaeda franchises around the world. So the U.S. is very attentive to that problem.
Well, what's the best way of cutting them off? I mean, if there's an offensive from the south, that doesn't really cut off ACME's supply lines, does it, coming from the north or the northeast?
Well, ACME is very well supplied with this money that they have, with the money, the weapons that they took from the Libyan arsenals at the fall of Colonel Gaddafi, the weapons they took from Malian arsenals when they chased the Malian government army out of the north, out of the Sahara, and also weapons they've been able to procure since with their ill-gotten gains from cocaine smuggling and hostage-taking. Now, if we think back several years, if European governments hadn't paid massive ransoms over the years, if European drug consumers didn't have such a taste for Latin American cocaine that passes through West Africa, Mali wouldn't be having this problem at the moment.
Do you think there's any political game plan here from ECOWAS, or is it really just, improvisation?
I think there's a great deal of improvisation, of course. There's some frustration with the ECOWAS mediation to date, which has been led by President Blaise Compaoré of Burkina Faso. Compaoré is known to play all sides of many conflicts and is able often to find his interest in these kinds of things.
Including the Ansar Din side.
Including the Ansar Din side, yeah. Including having made a certain amount of money, apparently having made a certain amount of money, allegedly having made a certain amount of money, helping with hostage negotiations in the past. And so there's some frustration with the unevenness of the West African mediation. Malians themselves have very little faith in Blaise Compaoré as a good faith negotiator and would like to see someone else step in. That's a message that is very, very often heard within Malian circles.
So what's going to happen? I mean, are these the extremists might just leave, the towns and sort of hide out in the desert for a while? But I mean, what happens next in terms of a political solution? I mean, it's very sketchy.
It is quite sketchy indeed. As you say, it's quite sketchy what the actual objectives are. This is a large territory to hold and control. Local fighters will be necessary. MNLA or others will probably have to serve as allies at some point. The cooperation of the Algerian state and of Mauritania will be especially important, also of Niger, although Niger's cooperation seemed to be secured. But Algeria and Mauritania also will have to reinforce their borders and be able to contain the forces of the jihadists if they attempt to sort of seek refuge within those territories.
Lots of pieces still to fit around that jigsaw puzzle. Thank you very much, Gregory Mann, a historian at Columbia University, and that's all we have time for on the France 24 interview. Thanks for watching.